Good evening and welcome to a Wednesday night edition of the Magpie Circle, fresh from the Rocky Horror Show at Oldham. No other way to describe it. I know supporters' emotions running very high. Some of the worst conditions that we've been to watch football matches in at Oldham. 4, 6, 7 gale winds. Terrible rain. We all got soaked. Probably half the Notts 1,000 had left before the end of the game. A thoroughly miserable night. What are your thoughts? Did you make the journey to Oldham? How did you take in the game? For me, poor, very poor. Inevitably, Ollie Norburn is going to attract a lot of criticism as costing Notts the game. Sent off second time, his second red card, likely to face a 2-match ban, though that's not yet been confirmed. Left Notts an uphill task with 10 men for 40 minutes of the second half. But for me, Oldham levels above us over the 90 minutes. No complaints about that result. How does it leave you feeling with the perennial debate about autos, or is it playoffs for Notts? Stell and I had rated it round about 30 to 35% a couple of weeks ago. I think those odds among the flock will be a lot lower now. Self-inflicted the defeat. 2 of the goals came from not set pieces in Oldham's final third of the pitch. Your thoughts and views on that? Here's another one to discuss. Welcome your thoughts on this and appreciate this is with hindsight. Should we be playing these 2 games? We've had 3 players on international duty. It's difficult to know whether we were actually allowed to postpone the game because Perrott hasn't been involved a great deal. However, if you listen to Martin Patterson, and obviously the club haven't clarified this, so we're having to speculate a little bit. The way Martin spoke on Monday ahead of the game was he spoke about the choice and how Notts wanted to play these games, which clearly gives a clear impression that Notts had the option to postpone these 2 matches. Don't forget, we're going to be without Tyrese Hall and Maz Kuyar for Saturday as well. What we knew last week were Oldham were one of the form teams in the division. We knew that before whatever happened with however many players we had available. Personally, I can't help but think we've missed a little bit of a trick here. If we were able to have postponed these 2 games, not 1, Kuyar will still be away on international duty, as will Tyrese Hall. Your thoughts on that? Should we have played them? EFL playoff semi-final dates have been confirmed earlier this week. Now, I'm not saying we'll definitely be in them and forget autos, but they have now been confirmed. Dates for your diary. Hopefully, we won't need them. But the EFL this year are having both legs of League 2 games on the same days. The first legs will be on Sunday, May the 10th, when it's 7th plays 4th at a 3 o'clock kickoff. It is at 6 o'clock later in the day, 6th versus 5th. The return legs will be on Friday, May the 15th, when it is 4th plays 7th at a 7:15 kickoff, and 5th versus 6th at 8 p.m. So it's Sunday the 10th and then Friday night the 15th. And for Notts to be at home in that second leg on the Friday night, it's not great travelling around on a Friday evening. Notts would have to finish 4th or 5th. Team that finishes higher has home advantage in the second leg. We'll dive in and get your thoughts and views. Just to say thank you as always to our official partners, the Big Shed, Over the Road, Trent Navigation, as well as JH Accountants. Thank you to you for your support. Now, computer gremlins, we had a bit of a glitch. It wiped off quite a lot of the early posters on our message board. So apologies for that. Quite a few of you, at my request, have been able to retype or save them or whatever it is that you do. So Ian Cooks is the last the first one to have avoided the big swipe. Supporters are doing their bit, but as per usual, it's the so-called professionals who are letting us down. Jurgen Pye, and thanks to Jurgen for resending twice, awful performance in horrendous conditions, capped off the night by falling down the steps on the way to the buses, followed by the A614 closed with no diversion signs. I eventually got home, I think Jurgen is around the Oldham area, at 1:30. Well, I'm sure it's of no consolation, Jurgen. Me, my lad, and a couple of Harry's pals, we came back down the A1 and the A614, and we found that just south of Oldham, the 614 was shut as well. So I had to make about a 20-minute diversion through the delights of Mansfield before we got home. So you weren't the only Notts fan who had problems with the closure of the A614. I do genuinely hope everyone got home okay last night. Pretty horrendous driving coming back over the M62. Jurgen carries on. For me, promotion hopes dashed with only Ness now available and no real cover if he gets injured. Now for Harrogate and Salford. If we don't get 6 points, I think that's it. What else have we got? Ian Cooksey. Hopefully that was Norburn's last appearance in a Notts shirt. Notts have an option of another year. Hopefully I wouldn't be wanting them to take it up. Yeah, and we talk about ups and downs in football, and I think Ollie Norburn has experienced hero to zero in a pretty short space of time in the last sequence of games. 4 yellows, which has resulted in 2 red cards. I know 1 or 2 people think they're harsh, and certainly the first one. My own thoughts and views on it. Ollie was obviously given a red in one of the most highest profile dismissals this season. Everyone saw, throwing the boot and all the rest of it. To have served his suspension and to come back so soon, clearly the antenna's you've got to be really, really careful. And in the modern game, if you put your foot above chest height, I think 9 times out of 10 referees book you. And you'd hope someone like Ollie would know how to play on a yellow. Clearly gets plenty of them. But that's 2 games now where he's got a first yellow and then got a second yellow. Jacob Beddoe, for instance, has had 10 yellows this season, but not had 1 red. I think the frustration was clear to see in the manager's thoughts in his after-match interview with Adam Hassel. Said it would be dealt with in-house, which I think is ominously he's not best pleased. And Martin did bemoan Notts's disciplinary record, 5 red cards. Not good enough if you want to get promotion, was the gist of what he had to say. Stephen Geldard, I don't know what was worse last night, Notts or the weather. Think we were let down, especially when there were over 1,000 fans who had travelled. Worst performance I have seen this year. Got to say, Steve, and others that made the journey, that's one of the worst weather conditions I can remember in many, many, many years. Like many of you, parked up about half a mile away, quarter of a mile away, and then walked through the new housing estate to get to the away end. And the wind and the rain absolutely torrential bit into you, and I think everyone was soaked, all their layers, while we were sat in the stand. Thank goodness at least that was covered. Horrible night. Don't know if you noticed, I was watching them in the warm-up, and again, I know this is an easy thing to say in hindsight, but I did think I'm not sure we embraced the cold or embraced the rain, embraced the wind, whatever you want to call it. I thought Oldham, maybe they're used to it up there, the extremes of the weather, but I thought they looked a lot more battle hardened, resilient, and ready for the challenge that was presented by the conditions than I think we were. I didn't have a great feeling watching the warm up, if I'm honest. Fans absolutely brilliant. 1,000 of us up there. Horrendous conditions. Look, I'm not one of those that would go to an away game and ask for me money back and all of those sorts of things, because there's no contractual guarantee when you decide to follow your team away and all over the country, spending your money, late hours, all the rest of it. I'm fortunate that most semi-retired now, so I try not to get too irate and angry and feel kind of emotionally distraught with it all, because not going to win every game, and over the course of 46 matches you're gonna have 2 or 3 absolute nightmare games where you go, oh, the players aren't trying, they aren't doing this, who's paying their wages, they should be doing this, that, the other. Doesn't matter who you are, there'll be 2 or 3 of them every single season. Even if you win the league with 100 points, there'll always be 2 or 3 of them, and I think last night was one of them. My concern at the minute is that we seem to be devoid of any meaningful momentum. We've tapered away in previous seasons in League Two, and at the minute you'd be more worried about us tapering away than building up a head of steam. I think we've lost, is it 4 or 5 games more than the 3 teams above us. That's a lot of games. So we might talk a lot about us being more resilient this year, and I think we are, but to have lost 10 or 11 games, that's a lot of games for a team that wants automatic. Cambridge have lost, 1 or 2 since we played them in October. Bromley have lost, is it 5 all season? We've lost a lot of games. And I am, at this moment, quite worried about the way the season is going. And I've got to say it, I'm not sure the January transfer window was anything other than average. And I guess we all thought, well, it's better than the last 2. And that was an incredibly low bar. We're not seeing massive amount of game time from the players that we've signed. And do we have a better, stronger group of players, more likely to get results than we did at the start of January? Not 100% convinced. Clearly, there's been a big upgrade in goalkeeper. But to an extent, I think we are still very, very reliant on the same group of players that we had before the January transfer window. We've probably not had one, and again, James is clearly a massive upgrade on Kelroos. But in terms of outfield players, in Noru, we basically see him running shuttles up and down the halfway line before every game, but we don't see him in meaningful minutes. The young centre half from Crystal Palace has had a few minutes, albeit not playing as a centre half. Harold from Norway, we've seen kind of 45 minutes, bits and pieces from him. I think he could really do with a goal. Undlove had an excellent game, stepped into the breach, unfortunate with the red card. But in terms of impact, momentum, I am genuinely, trying to be level-headed about this, concerned by it all. And, for me, Playoffs is a failure. Said it all along. With the support to base that we have, we should be autos. We should be autos. And they're slipping away rather than us gathering momentum right now. Kay says, can't believe our season is heading the same way as last. Feels like Groundhog Day. Rod McDonald being out for the season is a big nail in the coffin. I'm afraid we have no cover. That was the news that was communicated by Martin Patterson to say that Rod, it's a muscular injury. Apparently, Martin told Adam Hassel, and not likely to see him for the rest of the season. There are a lot of mixed messages and a lack of transparency and clarity coming out of Notts at the end of the season. I have no idea why Martin couldn't just say it's a hip injury or a thigh injury or something. For me, it's all, I think it's poor communication. And I thought it was, I think it was poor of Martin to kind of dig out Adam, thank you for asking that. Martin must know, any football club will know, injuries and all the rest of it, clubs communicate them, right? It's very straightforward. It's very simple. The moment you start trying to be clever or you give a vacuum, then it invites conspiracy theories, and Adam's doing his job. It's the, I was in journalism many moons ago. It's a standard answer. Yeah. And if Martin doesn't want to give injury updates week in and week out, then someone from the club should be communicating what that situation, a little bit like they did with Matty Platt. We're not talking top secret information here. It only serves to wind people up. So I actually thought that was quite poor. And it would have been far better for the club to have said that we either had the opportunity to postpone the game with 3 internationals, but we're not going to do so, rather than put it out on a Friday night before a Saturday game, and we're all thinking, hang on, what's going off here? And then Martin, under sufferance, semi-clarifies the situation on Monday. Just think it's poor. And right now, Notts need to be managing those relationships with supporters, because people are quite understandably and quite rightly getting a bit fractious with it all. Results will dictate everything. The club and Joe Palmer can pontificate about how fantastic the new university partnership is. Good. Absolutely. Said in the Magpie Redemption book before Joe arrived, we should be forming closer relationships with the universities. But that's a 1%er. 99% of the business of Notts County Football Club is winning football matches, and with the biggest supporter base in League Two, it's all about finishing the top 3. And let's take responsibility and accountability for that. Let's not shy away for it. Let's get on with it and let's deliver it. Matt Arnold, disgraceful performance last night. Nobody can take any credit for their performance. We need to forget about it and move on quickly. Tim Watchorn, good evening. Least said, soonest mended. After last night, there is a lot to mend before Harrogate. Royston, evening. Last night really hurt. Automatics gone due to another poor January transfer debacle. If we don't go up by the playoffs, it's another wasted season just to save a few pounds. JJ Aviation, evening, Paul. The autos have fallen off a cliff. I expect League Two football again next season is the brothers' model, and it is failing. Or is the brothers' model failing? We'll pick up on that a little bit later in the show. Has Belshaw really been a top signing, says Royston. He's improved the group. From where we were. David Dawes, worst game Notts have played in the last 5 years. I was thinking about that, David, and just at the start of the show, and just very quickly trying to come up with some games that are worse. I'll give you Sutton, first game back in the Football League, 5-1. Well, that was pretty bad. And I'll also give you, in terms of context, a much more difficult game. The second leg at Wimbledon in the playoffs last season, where if ever a team has gone down without so much as a single bit of fight, that was the game, as far as I was concerned. But last night was poor. Last night was poor. Ian Cooksey, as Joe Palmer said, it's easier to be self-sustainable in League Two if that's the height of their ambition. Then we are in for a lot of heartache trying to find a positive. A win on Saturday would help. Ian Cooksey talks about James Belshaw. He's never a League One keeper, no matter how much he loves Notts. So if he goes up, he will need replacing. I think my point in this debate, Ian, as we've said many times before, is we should have had him 3 years ago. We should have had him 3 years ago when he was prepared to come from Bristol Rovers. We've gone through a succession of keepers since then. And for me, if you're wanting to start pointing fingers at goalkeeper and everything, I think you have to look at the brothers. I don't care what you say. Selling Bass during a pretty hopeless and disastrous pre-season was, in my opinion, an absolutely ridiculous decision. Martin Allen, you don't get promotion by selling your best players. End of. Anthony Thomas, Belshaw had no chance with those goals. Should have been signed earlier is the issue. What are your thoughts, Paul, on not using a tactical break straight after the red or at 2-0 as we'd lost our heads? I thought the same, Anthony. I thought the same. I thought even allowing for 10 men, and it was clearly going to be massively difficult. I thought we lacked any real leadership or grit second half. I just thought we were very, very poor. And as lots of us have seen, you kind of have to go into Oldham's Twitter feed to see the goals. Those goals were criminal. Absolutely criminal. Yes, there are going to be individual errors. But, you know, the first two goals, we've got set pieces in their final third of the pitch. And I think we said this on Monday's show or Sunday's show. Martin has clearly tried to change the overarching style of this football club to becoming more League Two ready, more League Two savvy. But the problems, and when we lose games, invariably seem to stem from when we lapse back into overplaying or not doing the dirty, scruffy, roughy stuff, because there's kind of been an inbred and an ingrained psyche over the 6 years that play the ball on the deck, keep the ball, pass percentages, ball retention, all of that. So we don't tend to hoof it, and when we don't, it can often cost us. And I think Martin has battled with that to give us a more hybrid style. Our problems invariably seem to come when we revert back to overplaying. And I thought again that Oldham massively played the conditions much better than we did last night. And let's be honest, it was a horrible night, a stinking night. It was no different for Oldham than it was for us. Okay, absolutely no difference. Anthony Thomas carries on. I think that any other player doesn't get a second red there. This is regards Norburn. Another inexperienced ref for the level, trying to make a name for himself for me after the publicity around the red and Shoegate versus Chesterfield. I respectfully disagree, Anthony. I just think we use referees as whipping boys to, if you like, divert away from our own inadequacies and our own mistakes. and I think there's been a fair few of them in recent games. Shane Walker, let's not forget that Oldham are the form team at the moment, the dark horses for the playoff. Speaking to an ex-professional today at another League Two club, won't say who, they said, still playing for them, they said they thought Oldham, best team they've played, think they will make the playoffs, and think they will win them. In terms of the way they are setting up at the minute and the momentum that they have. Mrs. Magic Boots Garner, awful away trip and result. A question, if knots are not in the autos, will it affect squad mentality with recent injuries and results? Not just physicality needed for playoffs. MP looked very dejected. Senga Schmidt, Jatta did very little, should not be starting, gets beaten in the air by a player a foot shorter. Don't think it was one of Jatta's best games, but I think collectively it was a very poor performance by Notts. Thought he should have scored. I think it was a very good save by their keeper. He's got a right number of clean sheets, apparently, at the minute. It was a very good save. But, that first half header that would have levelled the game up, I think Jatta should bury that in the corner, not in the middle of the goal. Anthony Thomas again. It was a horrible night, but we need to stick with the team and see where we get. 6 points in the next two, and it's on. Although the centre-back injuries are a real concern. JJ Aviation, Norburn a liability at this stage of the season. Lucas Ness's back pass was dreadful. He might as well have been blindfolded. I think Martin Patterson described it as a blind back pass. And when you watch it back, it's Sunday morning stuff. It's Sunday morning stuff. Maybe he's thought there's nobody there, but he clearly doesn't look immediately before he plays it. And talk about, a gift horse in the mouth. Steve Geldard, excuse me. If we are to achieve autos, we now have to win at Salford and Cambridge. Autos is possible, but will be hard. Essie Kent, I can't believe the negative comments. These are the same players you were all praising on Monday. Indeed. But I think, Essie, we're judging this group by finishing in the top three. I certainly am, So it's a high bar. It's a high bar. But absolutely, hero to zero to hero to zero to hero. The problem, I think, at the moment is we can't afford. I mean, we probably now can only afford to lose 2 more games, and we have to win the rest. So, we're running down the margins for us doing anything other than winning games. Ian Cooksey, if we had postponed these 2 games, we would have had 5 away games in April and a total of 7 games in the month. Quite correct, Ian, and you may well argue it's the lesser of 2 evils. We're currently on a run of 3 away games before we play our next home game. So it swings and roundabouts. It swings and roundabouts. I would just love to know whether we genuinely did have the opportunity to postpone this. I think we did, if I base it on Martin's comments on Monday. And when we talk about dark arts and we talk about getting all the various advantages, Oldham was always going to be a massively difficult game. Maybe they've won 10 on the trot when we would have had to play them again. Who knows? Ian Haywood. I seem to remember we were all for us postponing that fixture at home, weren't we? After, was it Gillingham? And Gillingham fans I think they were celebrating at the Priestfield Stadium. They couldn't believe we called it off because they were in such terrible form, Ian Haywood. My thoughts of last night's game is on MP, Martin Patterson. 1, the team selection. 2, the style. 3, why not take Norburn off at half time? 4, play against 12, brackets, the ref. Should have cancelled due to weather. Ian Cooksey, last night was a serious dose of reality. You cannot seriously expect anything positive to be said about last night. Magic Boots of Ghana. I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, but taking the break gives all players a rest. Although I can see at the time we were on a great run, so can see the justification in wanting to get games played. Pash says McDonald and Platt being out for the season is concerning. We have to beat Salford and Cambridge away and hope they lose games to have any chance of getting automatic. It's not in our hands. It isn't now. It was until last night, Pash. It was until last night. Jurgen Pye, similar thing regards red cards and discipline happened with Liam Noble. It's an interesting point, Jurgen. Robbie says, personally, I think the autos are gone now. Need to concentrate on getting a high playoff place. The playoffs are still in the balance. Adam Kent, last night was bitterly disappointing. We looked off the pace even before the red card. I agree with that. Norburn is good for us, but not if he isn't on the pitch. We saw Norburn being sent off as soon as he got the first yellow. Andy Eason, Maz and Tyrese wouldn't have made a jot of difference to the outcome last night. Woeful performance, gave up and went to bed on 64 minutes. I agree, Andy. The question is, if we weren't playing Oldham at all last night and kicked the can down the road for 3 to 4 weeks, where would Oldham have been? We'll never know. We'll never know. Derek Flowers, Pato messed up by not subbing Norburn after the first yellow. I'll tell you what, as and when he plays again and he gets a yellow early doors, it'd be interesting to see what happens. A complete lack of connectivity between the players. Bad discipline and petulant behaviour. As such, I now think that automatic promotion has gone. Jatta's contribution for me was 0, says 36 VCM. Anthony Thomas, an Oldham player kicked a ball at AJ's head height, then feigned injury, and a foul wasn't even given. We were poor, but the officials are so poor at this level. Colin Metcalf, the team had a lot of credit in the bank, but for me, that's gone now. That level of unprofessionalism and petulance must not happen again. We can still achieve the goal, but it's going to be a lot harder now. Ian Cooksey, Cerula sarcastically applauding the ref, totally unprofessional and an unnecessary booking. Dale Pikett says, all fine for us getting back after the game. We went back via the snake pass to Sheffield. Glad you had a safe journey home. Robbie, 68, the disappointing aspect, all of their goals could have been avoided. Andy Eason, we had some pretty grim weather up there back in the days of their plastic pitch. Indeed, we did. Ian Cooksey, yes, I'm thinking the League Cup second round, second leg, and extra time, and when it never stopped raining. Okay, back to this season. Robbie, 68, 3 wins from 7 should get us a high playoff place. Derek Flowers, anyone remember the home game versus Mansfield? Yes, atrocious weather. 3 types of weather in one afternoon. Was it like the hailstones, bright sunshine, pelting down with rain? I do remember that. Bale and Ball, wasn't it obvious that Norburn should have been taken off at half time? Poor management, poor discipline. Pash says, interesting stat I saw regarding Notts here. Since 1st of January, when we have 11 men, we have played 11, won 10, and lost 1. When we have 10 men, We have played 4, drew 1, and lost 3. Awful discipline. And I guess also these red cards have been early in games. These are not red cards that we've taken in the 94th minute. These are substantial numbers of minutes and percentages of games that we've had to play with 10 men. Ian Hayward, Inoru, waste of time for me. Another Traore signing. I think it's a little bit harsh. My frustration, and I fully appreciate supporters is as well, is that these players are not necessarily making a tangible, regular impression on getting promoted this season. And I've mentioned this many times before. I thought it summed up to me in terms of a disconnect, or whatever you wanted to call it, between the brothers and Richard Montague, who was responsible, if I recall, for the January window last time. We had 5 players, and for the first home leg playoff semi-final against Wimbledon, not one of those 5 players were put in the starting 11 by Stuart Maynard. That, for me, says it all about alignment being joined up. And there are several of these players that Martin so far has used incredibly sparingly, or not in the position that we have been told they were brought in to play. So, not sure. Anthony Thomas on January transfers, Belshaw aside, although we chose Aidan Stone above him initially anyway, are more about potential and making money than promotion. You see, I don't want to believe that, Anthony. I'm sure the brothers and Richard Montague would deny that is the case. But I understand that a lot of people think that way. If there is any truth in the statement you've just made, then we're stuffed, because we won't get out. You sign professionally, set me off now. You sign footballers at a professional football club to improve your league position. That's what you do. You don't sign players to improve them. You don't sign players to make money on them. If you sign players to get promoted, that brings money into the football club. You rise up the football pyramid. You are successful. Your fan base grows. And if after a year or two, you've moved up a division or two, you still sell the players for money. I refuse to believe that is what the brothers are all about. But I understand why a lot of people think that. And if that is the case, I think we're stuffed. Doncaster Bradford last year went big on signing players to get them promoted. They're now doing fine in League One. They're doing fine. Anyway, I'll step back off my hobby horse. Colin Metcalf, 100% agree, read transfers. For me, the blame will lie squarely on the transfer windows if we fail to go up. I also have strong views on carrying injury-prone players. Wouldn't disagree one iota, Colin. Don't set me off on analysing players' records and appearance levels before they come to you. All I will content myself with saying is a senior Premier League physio once told me, Paul, he says physios are not always brought into the equation when players are signed, which, is an interesting point. And he said, if you sign a player who over the last 2 to 3 seasons has not played more than 15 to 20 games in a season, do not expect him to play more than 15 to 20 games when you sign him for this football club. Of course, there are exceptions. I know people can say, oh, Jody Jones. Yes, Jody Jones, I hesitate to use the phrase trial, but came here when he was out of contract, signed a short-term contract and proved his worth over a period of time. Yeah, I mean, it does surprise me a little bit. Think back to the start of the season. We had this new blueprint for League Two football, didn't we? We had the top level sports medical science guy. He never actually arrived here, or if he did, it was it for a few days and weeks. The new style football league board and all the rest of it. Look, I think Martin Patterson has done a remarkable job with the assembled group of players from our pre-season. A remarkable job to have us in the position that we are. But that cannot stop supporters when you are the biggest supporter club in the league by a fair way, from not harbouring realistic hopes and ambitions to fill one of the 3 automatic promotion spots. And depending how this pans out, because nobody knows, over the next 2 months, then I think a lot of people are going to start, of our supporter base, are going to start looking very, very closely at the whole model and the whole strategy of the football club. What else have we got? Adam Kent, in terms of balance, didn't we go down to 10 men at Bristol and win? Indeed, we did. Was that Tyrese Hall got the red on that one? Julie Howe, I'm not sure what the research has gone into this one. We never play well in heavy rain. Richard Elvian, Rod was top of thigh looking at the video of game. I had it down as thigh or hip, but just say it. Stops everyone, conspiracy theories and all the rest of it. JJ Aviation, season's over. Prove me wrong, Knots. Michael Fido, rabbits and headlights come to mind last night. Robbie 68, being more physical should not mean having a poor disciplinary record, which Knots have. Derek Flowers, money needs spending on a decent squad and not all their money on off-field projects. Get it right on the pitch and the rest will follow. Here, Derek Flowers. Jurgen Pye, yes, quite correct, Adam. Tyrese Hall sent off at Bristol Rovers. Anthony Thomas, agree, Paul, we should be top 3, but remember the brothers have only given us a budget that is around the playoffs. Many sources say 10th best, despite 10k crowds, transfer incomings, paddle profits, etc. I agree with everything you say, Anthony, but the brothers have spent a lot of money. That's undeniable. They've already written off 11 million quid. I think it's 17 million pounds since the brothers took over, including the purchase price of which I believe was approximately 2 million. So, the brothers have been burning 2.5 million a year. And with 10,000 crowds, that's a substantial amount more revenue than, say, a Bromley. So it's not like the brothers aren't spending the money. I genuinely don't know where we are with salaries. These sources, I know what you're talking about, Football League World Capology, they use that euphemistic phrase based on estimates. Estimates from who? I don't honestly know what our salaries are. I do believe other clubs spend more, are more ambitious. Without going over old ground, I find it really difficult that Notts didn't keep David McGoldrick. Why have we had to go through goalkeeping shenanigans this year by selling Bass? For me, and I approach football probably from a very different way to the brothers. They're 25 years to 30 years younger than me. It's their money. I sometimes think you can be too clever with modelling and all of these sorts of things. The clubs that are getting promoted out of League Two are by and large using traditional, tried and trusted methods, tried and trusted tactics, tried and trusted, experienced, proven players on the pitch, experienced, proven, promotion-winning managers. And yet we seem to hear a lot. Richard Montague did an interview not too long ago. The brothers, we have to come from it in a different way when it comes to signing players and unearthing players. My question would be very, very legitimately to Richard, without trying to, be argumentative. Why? Why do we have to be different? We've got, surely, with the crowds that we have, the income that we have coming into the club, Joe Palmer has done a great job commercialising the revenues of the football club. They've gone up. So we're getting more money in. We've got the biggest crowds. We've got the Nest. We've got the paddle courts. We've got this. We've got that. Yet we have to do it differently. If we're Bromley, I get Andy Woodman saying we have to do it differently because they're getting 3,000 gates, right? You would think MK Dons potentially as an exception, because I do have it on good authority, they are paying substantial wages, and that's the way they've decided to do it. There's not a right way or a wrong way. But why do we have to do it differently? That would be my first. Hopefully we can get Richard on the show towards the end of the season. Why do we have to be different? I don't think we have to be different. I think it's a model that the brothers want to bring. And at Football League level, it's not yet shown to work. It's got us out of the National League, but it's not yet shown to work with Notts County in the Football League. Recruitment will be the topic at the end of the season, says JJ Aviation. Kay says, I thought Pato was pretty horrible towards Adam in interviews. I almost feel like it's a case of bullying. Look, I'll stick up for people. I think, and I'll have no issues I'll get a death stare from him, but I would absolutely, in a polite way, say, I think it is poor. It is poor. But I look at things at the minute and the communication from the football club, I'm not sure at this moment in time is as transparent or as clear as it really should be. Ian Cooksey, I can't believe there is somebody on here acting as some sort of club apologist. Take your head out of the sand and look at the bigger picture. Cooksey, I'm going to give you a soft yellow. Come on, we are all Notts fans. We are all frustrated, okay? If there was an assessor marking my skills as a moderator on this podcast, he'd probably say I should have given you a yellow, but I'm just giving you a soft yellow. We're all fed up, me included. So please let us be respectful. We don't have to agree with each other, far from it. But if we disagree, let's do it in a respectful manner. Jurgen Pike, not replacing Bass has also cost us. Roos cost us quite a few points. Ian Cooksey, I think this was in answer to earlier in the conversation about worse games. Dorking away. Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Kay, sometimes feels like the club is only bothered about the Nest and not the football club. Can't tell me the money from there is going to get us promoted. And again, look, I have those feelings as well, Kay. I'm sure the club does not prioritise the Nest over on-field activities, but there is a balance of priorities here. And I do sometimes wonder if we've not quite got the balance right in terms of these priorities. Steve Geldard, worst game for me, FA Cup home loss 0-1 to Havant and Waterlooville. Grezza Max, Grezza, you've joined us. Weakest League Two in some time. By the state of the club, where we should be walking it this season. We maybe have to look at the management upstairs. Buy cheap, pay twice, as they say. Anthony Thomas, I was at Sutton, Wimbledon, and last night. And Sutton, and in all three, we lacked fight and failed the fans. Rare under Pato, but unacceptable. 36 VCM is back. The team's performance last night was as bad as the earlier game against Salford. Such a shame to lose this opportunity to go second in the league and to strengthen our bid for promotion. Ian Hayward, I didn't like the quick start free kicks. The ball should have gone into the box. Simon Blair, with 21 points still for us to play for, I think it premature to suggest we can't go up automatically. Let's just draw a line after last night. There's plenty still to play for. Anthony Thomas, elephant in the room. The brothers have got to come under scrutiny for accepting bids for key players despite our crowds and other revenue streams. Stephen Geldard, don't think we would have done anything even if we'd played all night last night. The goals we conceded were laughable, not even schoolboy errors. Fair play to Oldham. They were better all over than us. Paul Hawksworth, is anyone going to mention the awful nature of 6 of the goals we've conceded in the last 3 games? The first last night was a joke. Tim Alsop, Paul, recently you were struggling, is that struggling, to compare Oliver Norburn to a Notts player of old. Good on his day, but with disciplinary issues. Was that man Liam Noble? Pash, I agree with Mr. Hawksworth. Jacob Beddoe has been poor last 2 games. McDonald didn't look great either. Missing Platt. I think we're missing Matty Platt, definitely. I think Platt and Beddoe, or Plateau, as I called them, I think. I thought they gelled together well. For me, a lot now is riding on Lucas Ness. We haven't really got much spare capacity when it comes to centre halves, and you're really looking now at Lucas Ness playing the last 7-8 games of the season. We've become another injury. You are really shuffling the pack, I think, then. Andy Easom, no disrespect to the skipper, but when all around were losing their heads in the first half. Nick Cerula was very close to a second yellow too. A strong captain would have reined in the hot-headedness. Andy Easom, should we recall Hinchy and or Riley Reynolds? Yeah, Riley is doing well, I believe, Kidderminster, although it is National League North level, do not forget. Adam Kent, we're in 4th. Realistically, Cambridge have a game in hand, 4 points off autos. Team to make a response. 6 wins in a trot has been done already this season. Let's make it 7. Ian Cooksey reminding us exactly what I've said in terms of finances of the club about Joe Palmer's easier to be self-sustainable in League 2. Paul Arnold, I think the brothers are happy with us being in the playoffs each season. If we go up through them, great, but they have already voiced concerns about wages in the league above. Bet Bromley owners on. See, again, I do find that really difficult to believe. I understand why supporters think that way. But as a supporter, I share a lot of frustrations that are we really giving it our best bet to get out of this division into League One? Personally, I think when you get into League One, there's bigger clubs. I think you can pause and take breath, There's some decent sized teams. We're in the 3rd tier of English football. That's not the end of the world. Notts County, 10,000 average gates, 4th division. I'm sorry. I find it embarrassing. I really do. I find it embarrassing. I know I'm going over old ground back to the 1980s. I'm embarrassed that we're only in the 4th tier of English football. And I find it very difficult to buy into this whole, oh, well, it's a slow burn, linear. We're going to get more points this season than last season, so that means it's a sign of progression. I ain't buying it. I'm sorry, I ain't buying it. Ian Cooksey, we've had more long-term injuries in the last 3 seasons than I can ever remember. Greza Maxwell, we bought Robbo knowing he hasn't played more than 19 games in any one season since he's been a professional footballer, from his days at Celtic to Fleetwood to Notts. Look, we're talking about human beings and the players, and lots of people connected with them and family watch this show. So we always try and be respectful. So this is not digging out individual players and their appearance record. What we're talking about, I think, is the strategy of the football club, the depth of squad of the football club, and how the football club best, as a group of people, gets promoted. Not selling players on and doing it. How does this club best get promoted? And I think at this moment in time in the Football League, there are questions. And if we don't go up this year, I think there'll be a lot more questions in the summer. Is kind of how I would position it. Not giving Didsey a worthy contract will haunt the brothers, says JJ Aviation. Steve Geldard, we all look at the past, myself included, but we all now have to look forward. To the players have to believe and not look back. Ian Cooksey, Dunnett and Pavis were businessmen who got it right, didn't get involved in signing players, basically told managers, there's your budget, get on with it. Get it wrong, it's you that gets sacked. Adam Kent, I agree about McGoldrick. With hindsight, he potentially would have won us 2 or 3 of the games we have lost. I'd say not even with hindsight, Adam. David McGoldrick is as good a bet as you are going to get to maximise your chance of promotion. And we were very fortunate that he had a Notts background and therefore was prepared to come to us. And then, having left us, he's gone into League One and scored 15 goals. Took us 4 years, says Ian Cooksey, to get out of National League, when apart from the last season, we had the biggest crowds. I'm not certain whether our owners truly understand English football. Ian Cooksey, I'll take the soft yellow, no appeal, but I've just thrown my slipper at the wife. Is that a red? That one made me smile. Jono Hammocks is back. Jono, evening everyone. Seems after every defeat it's the end of the world, especially on social media. It was a bad performance and result. We need to quickly move on. Michael Fido, need to look back at some of the results, not just last night. John Parnham, bad night, but it is not the end of the season, and there's still a chance of promotion. Yesterday has gone, so let's look to Saturday. Colin Metcalf, thanks for doing this podcast, Paul. Been a very interesting debate. Seems you and I share very similar opinions. I wouldn't disagree, Colin. Richard Elvian, Harrogate and Newport will be scrapping to stay up. Tough games for us. Jonathan Hammocks, part 2. I thought the discipline was poor last night and we looked a yard off it. We didn't adapt to the weather. I don't know what to do with Ollie Norburn, to be honest. Move on and be positive. My view on Ollie is that Ollie still has an important part to play in this football club getting promoted. I think that we are a better team with him when he is not getting his red cards. I suspect that Martin will read the riot act to him. I suspect he will be fined, possibly fined heavily. And then it's up to him to respond. Some people have kind of said, oh, he shouldn't play anymore. But no, I disagree. Ollie Norburn has an important role to play for me in this club getting promoted. We've got a better chance of getting promoted with him than him not playing at all within the current group of players that we have available to us. I think if you start taking it out on him, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. Richard Elvin, which outfield players could be patched into defence if needed? Greza Maxwell, I was joining tonight, been working on Clarkson's Farm Visiting Centre, doing a floor or two. It's a right trek there and back. You mean Jezza is not putting you up, Greza? Greza, just tell him you used to fit the floors in Nottingham of Freddie Mercury's mum. You know, tell him that you are a floor layer to the stars. Okay, and ask him if he wants to put a few quid into Notts County. You know, Nigel Cameron. Great podcast, Paul. Totally agree with everything you've said. I'm resigned to League Two football next season. We've lost far too many games to be serious contenders. Michael Fido could always play Jatta at the back. Seems the only position he wins headers. Ian Brooks, not good enough to win the playoffs. Greza Maxwell, the end of season fans forum will be interesting if we're still in this division next season. Ian Haywood, in the summer, we need more depth in defence and midfield. Gary Phillips, it's not all over yet. And honestly, I don't think it is either, Gary. You know, of course there's chances, but it's more we're on a downward trend at the minute than an upward one that I think is frustrating a lot of people. Not over yet, says Gary. With the injuries and suspensions we now have, it won't be easy, but sometimes the best teams perform at their best with their backs to the wall. Totally agree with that. Stop feeling sorry for ourselves. Stop saying all the refs are rubbish and all the referees are against Notts County, because honestly, they're not. They're not. We're clutching at straws. We are using them to try to deflect from our own inadequacies, lack of discipline, defensive errors, unprofessionalism. You know, own up to it. Get on with it. Keep the faith, says Shane Walker. We will all still be here, whatever the outcome next season. Steve Geldard, Norburn has proved he can play. We should keep him for that alone, even if he's just on the bench. John Parnham. John Parnham's found himself on the subs bench at his Amateur Dramatics Society tonight. Not needed for rehearsals tonight. It's good to be available to watch the whole Wednesday episode. Greza says, Clarkson is that tight, he can peel an apple in his pocket. Ian Cooksey, what happens if we win Saturday and MK Dons and Cambridge lose? All our hopes will rise again. This club will be the death of us. Okay, well, I certainly hope it won't be the death of us. We're used to the ups and the downs. I've been going for over an hour tonight. You've been sending lots and lots of messages in, so thank you for that. You want a silver lining. I read out the playoff dates earlier. Sunday, was it the 10th? And Friday the 15th. In between that, on Wednesday the 13th, Kedwin Scott is coming back for Wembley Revisited, our next live show, Big Shed Trent Navigation. When we were booking it all in with Kedwin, I wasn't aware of when the dates were. There was a small chance that it could have been a playoff game for us, but we did, with Kedwin, if you like, give ourselves a bit of an opportunity either side of the Wednesday on the Tuesday or the Thursday. Now definitely goes ahead on the Wednesday, and we should hopefully next week be able to announce some more names, because some of those names were a bit conditional on specifically the 13th. So it will be a busy. Well, I'm hoping it won't be a busy week at all. I'm hoping we'll have gone up in the autos, and we can all look forward to the 13th. If we're in the playoffs, we've got a big old week, haven't we? So get those tickets, £12 from magpiecirclepodcast.com. We've done over 150 so far. That's really good. Thank you ever so much. We got 300 for Jim O'Brien, but obviously we've got plenty of time yet. But get the tickets early doors if you have any specific requests or seating requirements. On the notes section when you're buying the ticket, it just says any message, comments, you can put that in there for us, and we will make sure we look after your requirements. Oh, there's another plethora of messages come in. Derek Flowers, we sacked Maynard for not achieving promotion. Will the same happen to Pato? Knots one. We need some cheating players. Some advice from the recruitment department at Chesterfield would help us out. Gary Phillips, I don't think we signed particularly well in the summer. We had an even worse January. Despite this, we are still there or thereabouts. Gazali arrived late, deflated about last night. I am now rewinding the show. So as Gazali rewinds the show, we shall fast forward on. Harrogate, bottom two. What could possibly go wrong on Saturday? Early kickoff. It's on the telly. We've sold out, I believe, of all our allocation of tickets. So again, we will have a capacity following at Harrogate. Look forward to catching up with everybody there. I don't think we'll be doing a Friday show now, given that we've done one today. And I'm not sure what else I'll be able to talk about on Friday. So I will see you next again on Sunday with the Sunday morning supplement after the Harrogate show. Thank you for being respectful. We all know we're very frustrated. Some of us angry. You know, that was a horror show on a horrible night. At best, let's put it down to you have 3 of them a season. Okay, we've had our 3 this season now. Let's get back in the saddle. And as someone said earlier, we've won 6 on the spin previously. Let's go out and try and get another 6 on the spin. Thank you, one and all. Thank you to our official partners, the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation and Over the Road. An early reminder, next home game not until Easter Monday, but we will be in Over the Road from 12:30 on that Easter Monday. Harrogate away, Salford Good Friday. See you all Sunday. Take care. I hope you've all dried out from last night. I've still got my hat and gloves on the radiator. I've been playing golf today, and literally we've had snow, hailstones, torrential rain, force 9 gales. Nothing quite as bad as Oldham. But yeah, so I've had my fair share of inclement weather over the past 24 hours to last me a lifetime. Thank you, one and all. See you all very soon. And thank you for your participation and respectfully expressed views this evening. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.